it's one of the more mental things you can do. It's surprisingly similar to golf, where like millimeters of difference make all the difference. So we're doing tons of meditation and visualization. That's a huge part of my routine, for preparation and honestly practice when I'm going to bed.
This is the Mental Mettle Podcast, where we explore how to forge mental toughness and resilience in every aspect of life. Welcome, I'm your host, Coach Matt Toman. I'm an ICF certified professional coach with a background as a teacher, basketball coach, and athletic director. But my journey took a dramatic turn in 2020 when I survived both cancer and a stroke. Those experiences shaped my mission to help others grow stronger in every facet of life. Today, I work with athletes, coaches, educators, and anyone who believes that positive mental health is both achievable and a personal responsibility. This podcast is dedicated to helping listeners develop a positive version of toughness, one rooted in resilience, focus, and growth. Whether you're looking to excel on the field, in the classroom, or in life, this is your space to learn, grow, and take action. Join me on this journey, and together, let's forge your mettle. A paragon is a model of excellence, a standard by which others are measured, which makes it a perfect word for Olympians who embody dedication, resilience, and the very peak of physical and mental performance. With that in mind, we want to highlight our partners at the American Paragons Foundation. They're a nonprofit supporting Team USA athletes in underfunded women's and adaptive sports by helping them with career opportunities, media exposure, and real-world support beyond competition. Here at the Mental Mettle Podcast, we are proud to be collaborating with them and help amplify the stories and missions of athletes who deserve more visibility. Check out AmericanParagons.org to learn more. There are a ton of ways you can get involved that don't cost a dime. All right, so I don't want to name drop, but I'm on a podcast, and you know, the more people I get to listen to, the better. So I'll name drop. Today's episode, or today's guest, is Niklas Malacinski. And you may not know that name, but I can tell you that right now, as I'm producing this and creating this podcast and recording this portion of it, Niklas is in between events at the Milan Cortina Olympics. He is a Nordic Combined skier for the good old U.S. of A. He's the U.S.'s number one Nordic Combined skier, and he finished in his first event at 18th in the world, at the Olympics, and then he's got one next week. And that's pretty cool. The fact that now the interview you're going to hear in just a minute, Niklas was gracious enough to take time out of his schedule on his World Cup tour right a couple weeks before the Olympics to interview. And it's so gracious of him to do that. And what's really cool, but it's not just cool that I'm interviewing an Olympian that is competing right now. What's really cool is that so Shane Fisher was the guy, he was on my podcast last week. If you didn't check it, he was before. Shane Fisher is a USA bobsled pilot, and he started the American Paragons Foundation, which helps U.S. athletes with funding, with media, with getting jobs, with all sorts of things. And he started connecting me with athletes, Olympic athletes, and he said, I've got a lot for you. Which ones do you want? And I thought, I don't know, Shane, send them all my way, and I'll interview them, and let's just hope that they speak in a way that I can use, that can help me and promote what I think is the right way to do athletics. And so far, I think Niklas was the first that I interviewed, but I've interviewed 4 or 5 so far, to an athlete. They do the things the way that I try to preach and I try to coach with mental mettle coaching. That is that instills a lot of confidence in me and what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to help athletes. it is just so awesome to meet someone who is an elite athlete in their sport, and I mean at the world level, and to just organically have it come up in conversation that he starts talking about the things that I talk about. We'll hear Nick and Niklas in this interview talk about visualization. We'll talk about his grit in the cross-country portion of Nordic Combined. So Nordic Combined is ski jump plus cross-country. Oddly enough, it predates both of those events. So Nordic Combined was an event before ski jumping, and it was an event before cross-country. I guess me being a Flatlander from Illinois, I didn't realize that, but it's apparently it's a big deal in Scandinavia, Europe, things like that. So Niklas uses that visualization, which is extremely important in the ski jump, because he talks about how millimeters make a big difference, and you have to be tuned into your body, and you have to do things right to make a big difference. And then he talks about the grit and the perseverance that you need to be able to grind out a 10K on skis. And he goes straight into talking about how that has to be done positively and done with positive affirmations. And then he talks in about the importance of sleep and how important that is on the mental preparation. And to find those three things plus some other things that he talks about just on his own that happen to be things that I preach all the time working with my athletes, teams, coaches, school districts, things like that, it's pretty cool. And to find that all these elite level athletes that I'm working with are doing the same thing, pretty cool. So let's jump into the interview. I'll talk to you on the other side. But for now, enjoy the interview with Niklas Malacinski, USA Nordic Combined skier, currently competing at the Milan Cortina Olympics. Niklas Malacinski, here we go. Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness, using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Toman, at Mental Mettle Coaching. Here we go. It's the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Toman, and I'm here with my guest today, Niklas Malacinski. Niklas is a USA national champion in Nordic Combined. For those of you that don't know what Nordic Combined is, which is probably going to be a lot of my listeners here, that is a combination of ski jump and cross-country skiing. Is that correct, Niklas?
Yeah, that is correct. It's a unique one.
All right. It is a unique one, and I'm really cool. But you're really good at it in the sense that you're currently the top ranked American and third in this and top ranked American in the sport for the third consecutive year at 22 years old, which is now I'm going to get into some other things that you've done, but I'm just going to dive into some stuff. Is Nordic Combined a young man's game or an old man's game, or because there's endurance in there, and that's what's really interesting to me. So, Which is it?
It's a tough one. A lot of people, honestly, a lot of people peak at different ages, but I'd say anywhere from, I don't know, there are some outliers that peak or like really start to perform at 19. But for the majority, most people peak anywhere from 23 to 33.
Okay.
So it's definitely a wide range. I think it just depends on the person. It's the endurance side of things definitely helps the older you are. But the jumping is a huge part of it as well.
Well, and that's the thing because all these different athletic or Olympic events, it's like if you're a gymnast and you're like 22 years old, it's like you're pretty much done, right?
Right.
For the women's anyway. But if you're like a marathoner, like you don't have a chance unless you're like 30 something because you got to build that endurance. So as your sport is kind of a combination of them, it just hit me as like I don't know if 22 years old is young or old to be three-time for the
Yeah.
third consecutive year being the top ranked American.
No, it's definitely it's a lot more personal than a lot of sports actually, and I'm sure we'll dive into it more, but that's just one of many balances that we have in our sport of balancing the age of which you peak is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh yeah. So run me through some of your accomplishments so far, Nicholas.
Oh man, it's hard for me to
Just
just
don't
kind of
be
list
don't
them
be
off.
look
Yeah.
don't be humble here. Just lay it on me.
Okay. I guess some of the results I'm more proud of recently is um last season I started off with a personal best at 13th, which that was a big kind of uh I'd say milestone for me just because I was competing for top 10 results there, and that's kind of the next step for me right now.
When you say 13th, you mean in what competition?
Uh, and that was in Ruka, Finland, World Cup opener last year.
Oh, so this is the World Cup. This is everybody.
Yeah, yeah,
So when you
yeah.
say 13th, you mean 13th of all the people that do this professionally in the world.
Yeah. So that was
Yeah,
a
okay.
huge milestone. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, okay.
and yeah, so I think that's like a big standout one for me, and I think like I don't know, like I've said in the past, I consistency is the big one for me. Like I don't want to have one-off performances. I want to build consistently through my career and all that. And um, that's consistency is the big thing that I've been working on recently. And it's been a little bit of a struggle ever since that personal best. Honestly, I struggled with sickness and all that, but and then in the beginning of this season, similar thing where it's just like the body just wasn't in shape. But more recently, it's really kind of kicking into gear, and I'm kind of seeing the work I put in the summer. And um, just recently, another result to your question is I jumped into the top 10, which is a huge milestone for me on a World Cup. And then the skiing was pretty on par, nothing spectacular, but it was great. So I have been having some good top 20 results and one top 15 this season. So I think the steady progress is what I'm most proud of right now.
That's I mean that's really the only progress to be worried about is the steady progress.
Mhm.
Where are you at right now? Where in the world are you right now? Where are you coming? Where are you tuning in from?
Yeah, so I'm in Seefeld, Austria. We drove in today actually from Oberhof, Germany, from our last World Cup or this
Okay.
last weekend's World Cup. And we're here for a training camp now, and the Wi-Fi is bad, so that's probably why I'm cutting in and out, and I'm in the smallest apartment I've ever been in. So this is my top bunk right here. But
Listen,
yeah.
I mean, you're half Finnish, right? So you've spent a
Mhm.
lot of time in Europe, but the accommodation sizes are different in America than they are in Europe, just about
For
across the
sure.
board.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also when you're not trying to like I don't know, our team's definitely not living in luxury all the time. So when you're looking for the more affordable options, then this is kind of what you get.
When you're talking about team, this is U.S. national team?
Yeah, correct.
So are you headed from the World Cups to the Olympics? Is that the plan?
Well, in 2 weekends actually. So um we have a weekend off now in our World Cup schedule. We have our next World Cup the following weekend, and then we go into our final week of Olympic preparation, and then we head off to the Olympics beginning of February.
So it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know anything about it, but I mean, interesting that you have all these competitions leading up to the Olympics. Is that by design?
Not particularly. I think um, this is something that I think a lot of, I'd say, Americans are kind of shocked by because they see Olympics as this one big massive competition, but
Yeah.
realistically, it's no different than any World Championships, and it's slightly more prestigious than a World Cup. So honestly, our life doesn't change all that much. We continue on the World Cup circuit per usual, and um, the World Cup circuit adjusts to Olympic years, and we'll be we obviously won't have any competing competitions while we're at the Olympics or anything like that. But I think it's overlooked how the what I'm trying to say is I think the World Championships and World Cup season is overlooked because the Olympics is seen as this huge event, which it is, but it's really not all that different than a World Champs.
Right. Well, so I don't know. I don't know if I want to ask this next question then. If I don't, because it's going to seem like very American what you just said. But is this your first Olympics?
This is, yeah.
I mean, come
And
on.
yeah,
That's gotta be like. I
yeah.
love that you're downplaying it, but it's got to be cool.
No, I'm not trying to downplay at all. I'm beyond excited, and this is like a childhood dream. And um, whether I like it or not, no matter what I say, is like the Olympic name has more value than a World Cup season. You know, it's harder to qualify for. It comes once every 4 years. It's rare, so it's um, there is far more value in it. Don't get me wrong there. And I'm beyond excited because this is what I've been working towards, whether I like it or not. That's always been the little kid's dream, to make it to this level and to um, be have goals to compete well at the Olympics, not even just qualify for the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, and no offense whatsoever, the only way I'm going to accidentally run across you competing in the Nordic Combined is because I will turn on the Olympics and just leave it on and watch it. Right? Whatever.
Yeah,
I'll go home and I'll watch it. Where it's not going to happen otherwise. Right? I'm not going
yeah.
to accidentally run across NBC. You know, that's the only way I'm going to see something like the Nordic Combined.
No, absolutely. And I think a lot of the US is on the same boat as that. I think Nordic sports aren't as popular in the US. I think it's definitely different over here in Europe where, it's Austria's national sport. Germans love the sport. It's the Scandinavians' traditional sport. So it's definitely looked at in a different way. But yeah, I think the Olympics are a great way to do outreach to the US. Absolutely.
Well, and you are you told me you're half Finnish, and so when when you talk about the being Scandinavian over there, is that it's got to be like that's got to be how you got into it, right? It's a family thing, or where you lived, or
Surprisingly not really. Like, I think it being a kind of Scandinavian traditional sport, like absolutely that had a, a large amount of influence on how I got started in the sport. But I grew up in a ski town in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and Nordic Combined ski jumping, it was the thing to do. They Steamboats produced the most Olympians out of any any other city or sorry town in the U.S. I might be getting that wrong, but I I do believe that that is correct. But um, that's what got me into it, and it was kind of just a thing to do is do the ski jumping Nordic Combined program at Steamboat Springs Warner Sports Club, and I had some great kind of people to look up to. The 2010 Olympians for Nordic Combined, Billy DeMong, Johnny Spillane, Todd Lodwick. I got to hold their medals, and that's is a huge part of why I'm
oh,
here now. Like I held those medals, and I thought, okay, this is what I'm doing. So just kind of the community of Steamboat Springs really brought me to where I am now.
and you started that when you were 8.
Yeah, yep, right, just before 8.
What does an 8-year-old ski jump look like?
Can you repeat that? You broke up on the last part.
What does an 8-year-old ski jumping look like?
Well, we start on alpine skis actually. You don't
Okay.
quite graduate to the jumping skis yet, which, I mean, my jumping skis now are 2.5 yards long.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't quite start on skis like that. But you're just kind of jumping off of little bump jumps with alpine skis, catching more and more air, and um, as you're kind of developing and kind of getting the coordination of it, then you graduate to the jumping skis, and then you start to actually dip your toe into the actual flying part of the sport where you're going into the aerodynamics of flying and how to fly further with less speed and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's just a little bit at a time, but still, that's
Hmm.
I don't know. I grew up in Illinois. It's not a big. Yeah, it's not something you accidentally do here. So
Hmm.
it's just from different parts of the world, and that's really cool. This being the Mental Metal Podcast, man. I really want to dig into the psychology of the Nordic Combined is really cool because yes, it's two different disciplines, but they take two different psychological approaches too.
Hmm.
And,
Absolutely.
and that is what I'm really, I don't know anything about jumping. Uh, I would say I don't know anything about cross country skiing, but that's an endurance sport, and
Hmm.
I understand that. But just talk to me about the difference in the psychology between one event and the other, and if that requires you to be like a different person with a different mindset, and just speak to that.
Yeah, a little bit. And I think there's very personal. So like for other people, it might be different than my experience, but um, I, what I find to be quite similar for everybody on the jumping side of things is it's it's one of the more mental things you can do. It's surprisingly similar to golf where like millimeters of difference make all the difference. So we're doing tons of meditation and visualization. That's a huge part of my routine for preparation and honestly practice when I'm going to bed. Um, and also just kind of preparing for the jitters because you got to be able to kind of accept nervousness. So our ski jumping changes a lot depending on tension in your body. So um, if you're tense in your interim position, your push is going to be off, and that costs tons of meters. And sometimes it's also similar to golf in a sense where you can whiff the ball sometimes, even though you've done it millions of times. So it's all coming up to a fraction of a second on the table of hitting that table at the perfect timing, going what is it, 50 miles an hour off a jump. So it's honestly that's what I call like a little bit of the Zen side of the sport where you really need to be dialed. And then take it on the cross country side of things. This is where I see the differences. Is some people like to be super amped up. Some people listen to Mozart when they warm up. It's like um, such a wide range, but I think that's kind of the beauty of it is everyone can take their own approach to it. And for me, it's a lot of um, little self affirmations of um, there's no need to be overly tense or nervous because the work has been done. We work from 2 weeks after the season. Usually, I take about 2 weeks off of like not thinking about the sport, and then I go back into training season. So it's usually April 1st until until March 30th or like March 15th ish, depending on when the season ends, of on time of just straight training. So usually what works for me is just trusting that all those months have added up and I don't need to think about anything else other than showing what I've done and the hours I've put in, and just kind of trusting my own performance.
Well, I want to dive into a few pieces that you said there, but let's be honest, Nicholas. When you talk about people warming up to Mozart, it is the national sport of Austria. That might have a little bit more to do with
Yeah,
it than
there you go.
anything else.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
that's a
yeah,
very fair point.
yeah. I don't see anybody doing it here. But who knows? But yeah, um, the visualization stuff that really. I try to, as a mental performance coach, working with my athletes, but most of mine are more a little bit more what's the word I'm looking, not just commonplace, but a little bit more usual sports like football players, basketball players,
Hmm.
things like that in the Midwest where I'm here at. And I don't want to say I get resistance on visualization, but I do sometimes.
Yeah.
I do get
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And I
Absolutely.
find that some sports like what you're talking about when I met with Shane Fisher, the
Hmm.
bobsledder, he talks about it. You talk about it. I want you to talk to me about what that entails for you. Like, even if you run me through a little bit of what your visualization feels like, what you're looking for, and what the exact benefits you feel like you get from it are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I don't blame any of the athletes you're working with because it is the boring side of it for sure. Um, and what I came to realize, luckily, I'm very fortunate to understand this from a young age, but I realized that um, that's a little bit of the difference between the greats um, and anything below that is, you do the stuff that's really boring and you don't like doing. But essentially, um, I find it like a free training session, and all I do is I take myself through a short meditation, breathing exercise, anything from a 4x4 or like box breathing to
Box.
and
Yep.
yeah, any sort of counting breathing. Sometimes I like to experiment with like more hypnosis and kind of what is it? And NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, type
Yeah.
stuff to kind of get
Yep.
really into the relaxed state. And then honestly, I try to picture everything I possibly can about what the day is like, when I'm walking
Hmm.
out. Um, sometimes I'll take it extreme and I'll like take it back to when I'm tying my boots in the locker room
That
and stuff like
it's
that.
funny you said that because I've done that with athletes before, and I'll be like, "Hey, let's do you're tying your shoes in the locker room." They're like, "We got to start all the way back there." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where we start.
Yeah.
That's
No.
very important because that's when the stress starts."
Hmm. Exactly. And that's when you need to start getting into the zone. So it's might as well practice that. Um, and I visualize everything from like what pains I might be having that day, like what are usual pains I have, what it feels like to tie my laces that day. Are my feet a little sore today? Um, smell is a big one for me, and also
Mhm.
uh, obviously sight visualization, but kind of what I'm hearing as well, and um, what I'm feeling. Like especially in ski jumping, you feel cold, bitter winds, like cold and like kind of bitter, like nipping uh, temperatures. So I like to visualize that feeling. That kind of cues me right into it. And then I just go through the process, like which boot goes into the ski first? Is it left or right? Which binding do I clip in first? And then sliding out onto the bar, what's my routine? Am I breathing in or out at what pace? Um, then I do, then I take my last breath before the coach flags me. I take myself through a jump, um, which can be really hard sometimes. It's so often that I mess up what's supposed to be a perfect visualization. But that's part of it,
Yeah.
like going back, correcting it. Sometimes if I'm really struggling with something, I'll visualize it slow motion. I usually try to do first person. Sometimes I'll do third person, but usually it's first. That's what I'm trying to practice. And honestly, it's weird because it's just like training days where it's like sometimes I'll have bad days in my head. I just cannot get that perfect jump I'm trying to visualize.
What
But yeah.
here's an interesting question because our bodies and our mind are much more connected than we believe they are. And I'm really
Hmm.
kind of curious when you make a mistake in a in a visualization session, does it ever clue you into something that maybe you're doing wrong that you're like, "Hey, this is something I do need to watch that
Yeah.
I'm kind of picking up on something."
No, absolutely. And funny thing is I feel like I've been doing this enough to where it really does correlate. A lot of times the stuff I mess up with in my head is exactly what I'm trying to get out of a certain habit loop on the hill. So it's usually quite similar.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting. And that's what I mean. You realize that it's like, oh, I might be messing it up on the hill because I'm thinking I'm going to mess it up because I can't even
Mhm.
do it without, I can't even
Y-
do it right visualizing it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's kind of where I shifted my focus when I am really struggling with that is um I've noticed recently and um just kind of talking with teammates, talking with any other athletes is people are always talking about trying to make a change, like kind of just talking more than they're actually
Hmm.
doing. That might be blunt,
Yeah.
but they're like I'm trying, it's frustrating, blah blah blah. But like unless you actually made a change, you're not really trying. Because anybody can make a change in a basketball shot, a golf swing, anything. Like you can drastically change something, not necessarily for the better, that you can change something. So what I chase is just a different feeling. Sometimes I'll do the stupidest thing on the hill just to change it. And that usually kind of throws me out of the habit loop. I feel what I'm actually supposed to be exaggerating because everything needs to be like 10x feeling wise. Because I'll feel like in an in run position, you're pretty much in a how would I describe it? Like a parallel squat, where your chest is parallel to the ground.
Hmm.
And sometimes when I need to lower my butt a little in the position, I'll think I'm doing it, but it changes barely a millimeter. So then I'll visualize, okay, the butt needs to be touching the track, and then that actually throws me out of the habit loop and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I bring
Which you're
that into the
actually, yeah.
yeah,
It,
yeah,
because you can
and then
actually
it
do that.
changes the perfect amount,
Yeah.
like on
Yeah.
in hindsight.
No. And that's it. And the thing about change, whenever you want, like, change is going to feel awkward at first. So it's like
Hmm.
if I'm feeling really comfortable here and I'm doing it wrong, then I need to feel uncomfortable for a little
Yeah.
bit.
No, absolutely. And there's like so many athletes like think they're trying to change something and it's no fault to them. It's just something I realize is like a way to kind of hack that like feeling of frustration is just really change something.
All right, so if you listen to the Mental Mettle Podcast, you already know that this show is all about building real mental toughness, not the old school toughen up, basically fake stuff that usually backfires. And that's why I put together what I teach into a free 7-day email course for parents, and it's called the Resilient Parents Playbook. It walks you through several things that I talk about. First, how to shift your praise from wins and stats to effort, attitude, and other controllable behaviors. Also, how to have high standards and give honest feedback without tearing down your child's confidence. And how to teach simple, science backed tools to handle nerves, pressure, and even those pregame stomach aches. So if you've ever worried that you're being a little too hard on your kid or that your support might actually making things worse by giving too much pressure, well, this course goes into those topics. And it ends with a step-by-step reset conversation that you can use if you've ever felt like you've been that parent. And once again, it's completely free. You can get the link in the show notes or you can just type it in yourself. It's resilientparentsplaybook.com. I sincerely hope you give it a shot. Yeah. So then let's go to what you talked about whenever we're doing the cross country. And you were talking, I wrote down that you said that about the self affirmations.
Mhm.
So when you do, give me the distance and the time on this cross country.
So our standard event is 10 kilometers.
Okay.
And the track changes, so the time changes, but anywhere from 21 minutes to, I mean, yesterday was 27 minutes. So it was a tough day because it was hard conditions and a very hilly course. So it changes, but
So you've got, and I always say that like when we talk about self affirmations and talking to yourself in a endurance sport, you have a lot of time with yourself.
mhm,
and
a
and
lot.
and, and it's important. Yeah, and that's so you really need to be thinking how you talk to yourself really matters.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's honestly it feels repetitive to say because it's kind of talked about it's so much nowadays, but it's so true to where it's if you have bad thoughts, then it's not worth the energy to um, kind of spend time dragging yourself down. And this actually kind of reminded me, but when I was younger, there were some interval workouts that I would do. It's not necessarily a smart way to train, but some interval sessions, I would think, okay, for every bad thought I have to do an extra one. Um, and that's something you can do when you're like, I don't know, young and I don't know, just
Yeah.
it's okay if you mess up the training protocol because nowadays it's like you shouldn't do more than this no matter what because you need to be recovered for the next session, all that. But
Yeah.
this is something I took from when I was younger is just like to do an extra one for every bad thought you have. And I thought that was a little bit of a good training exercise.
You know what I mean? It probably helped for a little bit because it helps you recognize a couple things. One that like, well, one, how often you are having those bad thoughts.
Yeah,
Um,
big time.
and it's funny that you say, yes, I know it's talked about a lot, and I'm sure in your circles, it
Yeah,
is. But I'm telling you, I work with a lot of young athletes that are, how do we put this? Influenced by the type of coaching that breeds negative self-talk.
yeah.
That's a really
No,
nice. That's a really nice way for me to say that.
no,
Um,
exactly. And I went through the same rabbit hole. I fell in love with the David Goggins book. Like that was my new
he's
training method, you know. But I think everyone can take great value from the David Goggins book. It needs to be applied in the correct way and in a positive manner. And I think it's great coaching for especially if someone's struggling with a little bit of I don't want to call anybody out, but like if someone's struggling with a weak mind, I'll just say it. It's a
yeah.
great book to take a grain of salt from.
I think that that's the great way for you because I say that all the time. He's obviously very successful. He does a lot of things right. He is very tough, but some of the things, the ways he does it will break a lot of people before they get better.
Yeah. And
And
exactly. And that's just not elite athleticism.
it's not.
It's just not. That's not how it works. But I think he does have a great message all in all.
Well, we'll leave it at that. I'm
Yeah.
with you because I use that example all the time. I read the book and I get all fired up, but then as I
Mhm.
work with people, I'm just like, this is not how I would tell somebody to do something.
Yeah.
Because I just don't. I think it comes with it. Well, I say that a lot of times that the negative voice and the negative internal thoughts are really good short-term motivators with some very long-term consequences
Mhm.
that are not what we need. And
Yeah.
again, we'll leave it at that. But I love that I do. I just love the dichotomy of your sport. The one is that visualization and it's Oprah in a hurry, and the other one is the other
Mhm.
one. You got to be like, I got to dig in and really be focusing on my form and my thoughts and spending your time on it. Is there one that you're better at than the other, mentally and or physically?
Um, I've actually been quite proud of the amount of grit I'm able to push myself through. I don't know if I said that correctly. Either way,
I get what
I've
you
been
mean.
yeah, I've been proud of my grit. But honestly, more recently, I've been feeling more and more that I can use my nervousness in a great manner on the jump. Um, to where it almost doesn't feel like nervousness anymore. It just feels like a tool. So I think that's through all the mental work I've been doing. So, maybe it's shifted more towards the jumping side of things where that's my strength. Um, and honestly, I enjoy that side a little more. Like, I don't know, I enjoy the small things like yoga, meditation, visualization. Like I've learned to really enjoy that actually.
There's a lot of feel good that comes from you taking what you're not as good at and getting better at that, and that's really good.
Absolutely.
And I also think that when we talk about, well, I talk with athletes all the time, and we talk about, I try to get them to define the difference between nervousness and excitement, and they're not as far off as we think, and sometimes it's just the mindset
Yeah.
that it's the same exact feeling. It's just what we label it.
That's exactly what I was going to say when you first mentioned it is for me it's just been relabeling it. It's the same
Yeah.
exact thing. It applies to anything. Like if you're nervous to go talk on stage or anything like that, if I actually read it was in a book that I recently read. I don't know what it was in, but it referenced a study that if you rehearse I'm excited instead of I'm nervous or like
Hmm.
feeding into the feelings, the performance statistically was way better if
Hmm.
you just relabel it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's listen. No, I know, and that's what's so. It's just relabeling it and calling it something else, and I think it's why that mental, like, practicing it and the visualization and learning to calm yourself down a little bit, but not calm down too much, right? You don't be
Yeah.
comatose up there because you got to be
Yeah.
ready to go, right?
No, exactly. And it's
Uh,
it's a very fine balance to find. And I'm sure like through your career you've found it's very hard to teach in somebody. It's almost something that a lot of athletes have to self-explore.
it really is. We're not all. I mean, people don't start with the same. You're not born with the same genetic, physical abilities in the same way that you're not born with the same genetic mental abilities. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Hmm.
I don't think we think about that, but it's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so let's talk about in your the stuff that you wrote up for me and sent some stuff. You talked about, and I love this conversation, how to be driven, but not so driven that it becomes toxic, and somehow to like, I'm shooting for results, but I have to separate myself and my self-worth from
Mhm.
those results. And man, if you can explain how you do that,
Yeah.
that's phenomenal.
Yeah. To be honest, I messed that up this year. It, like that was one of the harshest lessons I've ever learned, and I just learned it. I just came out of the other end of it to where I can now look back and say, "Oh, never again." Like we were saying in the beginning of this conversation, the Olympics is so hyped up that went full tunnel vision. This past summer, I've never trained so much. I've never isolated myself so much, and it turned into this like toxic routine that from the outside perspective looked like incredible like what's the word I'm looking for, dedication and discipline, but
Mm-hmm.
internally it was so unhealthy. um
Yeah.
the only thing I was ever thinking about is how can I be better. um and that's very draining. I shut out everything in my life. I my current apartment in Norway where I'm living for this sport to be better, ironically, is in a basement, and it turned into this vicious routine of training, and on top of that, chasing my tail when I'm training. What I mean by that is like I'm never good enough at training, so I go harder,
Yeah.
and then that ruins the session. And then I get mad at myself because it's a bad session. So the next session was forcing it even harder to be better, and just a terrible routine. And it got to the point where I was training so much that I was under fueling. It got to the point that I wasn't focused on anything else, that I didn't even realize my mental health was dipping. um in the moment, I even looking back now, like I couldn't have done anything differently because all I saw it as was dedication. um
Mm-hmm.
Looking back on it now, it was psycho, you know. And um for me, I strive to be a little bit psycho because um that's kind of what has to take, but everybody has their own
Yeah.
thresholds. So that's what I've been learning this year, is the threshold of how psycho I can go, is what I call it. um yeah.
So what was the like, how did you find out, how did you realize that, okay, this is too much? Or like,
Yeah.
what was the alarm bells that was like, hey, this is not okay?
So I last season, so not this 2025 2026 season, but the previous, I was national champion. This year I was seventh, um this fall, and that was unreal. I was like, I looked at myself in the mirror and like, what was that? I was getting beat by juniors, and like to no fault, like no shade to them or anything. They performed
Yeah.
phenomenally. but that's just not the level I hold myself to. Um,
Yeah.
and that just really rocked my world. This is the fall before the Olympic season. I'm like, what is going on? Like, and I sat down with my coaches, and I've had a great team behind me with sports psych and nutritionists, and living abroad, it's really hard to work remotely, and it helps, and they definitely helped me realize it sooner than I would have, and um, they were kind of helping me work through the whole process, and to be honest, they helped me realize it in the first place. Um, but I sat down with my coach, and it just kind of was a um, realization that I've been chasing my tail for the past, I don't know, 8 months. Um, and then came like the restructuring plan where it was like, okay, now I can go psycho into how to recover, how to enjoy life again, enjoy training, all that, like hyperfixate on that, and it's something positive. And that's when everything started to turn around. I dialed back the training load. Was making sure I was getting time in with friends, family, all that. So it kind of just turned into a shift of focus, trying to find the little positives and everything, and just really, like, the best word I can associate to it is like rejuvenating.
Hmm.
And it, I, looking back now, like, it paid off for sure. But even I was still stressing at the beginning of the season, end of November, because I was still seeing the
Yeah.
effects of what I had done. Um, and yeah, it's just like I said, biggest
Well,
learning
I
curve of
mean,
my life.
cause and effect are a lot. It's a lot more spaced out than we think it is,
Mhm.
both negative and positive,
Yeah.
right?
And it's always that thought of like, oh, this doesn't work for these athletes, but it'll work for me. Like, this grind mentality, it'll work for me. It's
Yeah.
always that. It's always like, it doesn't work for them, but it'll work for me.
Yeah. And no, and you feel like, and you said that in there, but I'm just trying to reiterate. You feel like it was all of the issues that you had the psycho and the overtraining and all that. It was really focused on results based and looking at the results more than
Oh,
anything else.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I was hyper analyzing every training session for results. Like,
Mm,
even beyond my dreams of being at the top of the field at the Olympics and Olympic medals, all that, like, that's my ultimate long-term dream. But it turned into like, we have devices that measure lactic acid for interval sessions to make sure we're on target pace. That's
right.
where you draw blood, measure the, like, acidity of your blood, pretty much. I was hyper analyzing, like, putting these into charts and everything, like, making sure I'm on pace. And looking back, it's like, yeah, obviously I wasn't on target.
It's crazy, and it's great that you figured this out at 22. And what's the so once you started making this change a little bit, and I love that you said I need to be psycho about my recovery. I need to be psycho about like having time with friends and family, because those things really matter.
Really matter.
Um and look, having a psycho personality, which is probably clearly what you have, is fine, but I think you have to be psycho about. You have to choose what to be psycho about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And
Uh,
it's just like, it needs to be big picture, like, um I was tunnel vision, like I was saying. I was counting every carb instead of just like looking at big picture of fueling and
mhm.
um all that. So it was a journey.
And you talked about. Hey, talk to me briefly about the importance of rest, sleep, and recovery, because I think that I don't think that gets enough play, and I think it
Yeah.
should.
No, exactly. Something I learned early on, and I believe, is that the best performance enhancing drug you can take is sleep. Then comes whatever's all out there. But like, the number one difference maker is going to be sleep. Like, if you don't have sleep but you're taking any steroids, it's not going to be as significant as it is if you just slept. Um, that's something I learned early on, and that kind of stuck with me. And I can't emphasize it enough. Is like that's your body works so hard when you're sleeping and recovering, um, trying to rebuild what you've been breaking down in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's undersold, and I think it's something I work with a lot with. Again, with a lot of, I do a lot of high school, college athletes, and I just keep telling them, I'm like, just go sleep, just sleep.
Yeah,
Like you're going to, like, you're gonna get some, and that's a mental thing, right? Like
yeah,
to decide that, to put your phone away, to put things away, and just say, I'm gonna go sleep.
yeah.
I think that to be a very the mental part of athletics.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, it's the hardest part is getting into the actual routine of it. Um,
Yes.
so that's a really hard part. And I mean, when I was in high school, I understand the struggle. Like I was going to bed at 8 part of the nights for training in the morning, and um it takes a toll. It takes a toll on your social life. It takes a toll of what you really want to do. Um,
Yeah.
there's always a compromise though, like you don't, it doesn't have to be 8 p.m. You can, as long as you're getting a full night of sleep, like
Yeah.
just like this whole season has been for me, like this, what I've learned is there's a balance to everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of sleep, we're gonna have to, you're in Austria. We're gonna have to finish up here in a second. Here, I'm sure you got to get up and get some sleep, and I don't want to be. So you got a another event before you head to the Olympics.
Mhm.
What are you looking up? What are you looking forward to most about representing the United States in the Olympics?
Oh, that little voice in my head is saying all the swag.
It's got to
Definitely,
be
yeah,
right.
yeah, right. No, but in all seriousness, it's really cool to just kind of represent, looking at it, I am the product of my community. Um, I'm the product of how my parents raised me, and kind of I'm a product of what the being half finished did to me. I'm a product of growing up in a steamboat in a ski town. So it's really cool to see and recognize that it's like, yeah, I'm up here doing it, but that by no means am I the only one that got myself here.
Yeah.
So I think that's something I really look forward to representing.
Oh, so super cool. I'm so excited for you. I can't wait to watch and see how it's going. Last question. What did I not ask you that I should have asked you?
Oh, honestly,
What did I miss?
I think we've had an amazing conversation, so I think that's going to be a hard one to answer.
Okay.
Let's see. Um, if I had to add anything to this conversation, I would encourage people to really look towards Nordic sports, and especially Nordic Combined. I think um, w- uh, the way I look at it is we're out here like mastering an entire discipline, like just Nordic ski jumping and cross country skiing is the original Nordic sport. That's how this both specialized sports originated. It's been in the
Yeah.
first Olympics and all that. So not necessarily anything you haven't asked me, but just something I would add is
Well, I think
just
that's, I think
look
at
at Nordic
from an
Combined. I
American,
think you'd be interested.
yeah, I think that an American perspective that doesn't really look at the, the ski sports and all those, like, you're right. Ski jumping came from that. Cross country
Hmm.
came, like, it was like this event has been around since forever. Like, it's a
Yeah.
big deal.
Exactly. And I think if people give it a chance, I know it's not hard to watch in the US given the time change, and none of the US broadcasting services uh really pick it up, but it's not hard to find if you
Yeah.
Google it or watch off European like TV or anything like that. So I don't know. That's the only thing I would add at the end here.
Outstanding. Well, I will definitely be watching, Nicholas, and I want you to do well. And just I continue best of luck to you and your pursuit. And I will be following your career. And thank you so much for coming on the show. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you. And I think the message you're giving out here is really important. So thank you.
Thank you for adding to it. I think people like you that have coming in, being successful, and young people doing this that are saying, "Hey, this is okay. This is doing it." Like I'm telling you, Nicholas, despite your pleadings here, most of my audience is not going to be skiers, right?
Mhm.
But they're going to be able to say, okay, if that can apply to here, it can apply to me, and I should be doing this because this guy's really good at his sport and he's being successful. So you've really helped me out with that, and I sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Your athlete probably spends hours working on the specific skill set they need for their sport, and they probably spend hours in the weight room building their body. But how much time do they spend intentionally training their mind? Well, building mindset is the key to bridging the gap between the skills that we see and game execution. Well, Mental Mettle Coaching provides individual programs that can help your athlete develop this third and crucial skill set. I really hope you took some good notes and see Nicholas is like, when he got into the visualization, I thought he was just going to talk about visualization. Oh, I do visualization. That dude went next level on the visualization and how he uses it for so many things, and does the preparation on visualization and putting his boots on and getting in the right spot, and uses it to figure out what he's doing wrong and how to tweak stuff and how to change things, and getting in tune with his body to do all these things, and how he can use it as it's a mental training session to get better. And he went above and beyond that visualization idea that I'm again, it's something I try to preach and teach to the athletes and that I work with, mostly high school, some college, a couple pro, and try to do. But I do get a little resistance, and it feels awkward. It feels strange. But I'm going to be a little bit more emboldened to like lean into it now that I've talked to more athletes like Nicholas, who's very successful, to say no. Successful to just say no. This is something you need to be doing. And then his idea about how you got to be gritty, but that gritty has to be rooted in some self-affirmations and doing things you're doing well. And that self-talk is to be able to keep doing that for an entire 10K race, and how he had to rebuild the way he did things, not just the grit in the race, but the grit in the grind that we have, and how he had to like rebuild he said he was going psycho, and he had to change how he saw things, and about it, really leaning into the joy of it and not just beating himself up and being toxic. Again, something I try so hard to preach, that idea of negativity and thinking that negativity is the motivator we need, it just doesn't work. It's negativity is a good short-term motivator with long-term consequences. And I love that I didn't say that to him, but he talks about that, about his drive got a little toxic, and overtraining and isolation, and just he chased results so much that it backfired on him, and how he had to lean into his joy of the sport to kind of refine himself. It is, again, it's so empowering to me to know that these things that I've learned about positive psychology and how much I know they've helped me, and then just my decision to go use this to apply to athletics, and doing it on faith that I knew this would work, and to have that be something that an Olympic athlete, an elite athlete, agrees on and says is just, man, it's awesome. I can't say it. I can't say how awesome enough, like just how cool that is, and just to see that. So hopefully if you listen to this and you pick up on that, you can take some notes and say, how can I start applying this? You don't listen. I almost guarantee that nobody that listens to my podcast regularly, I might have some listeners now because of Nicholas, but nobody that's a regular listener of my show is a Nordic Combined skier. But hopefully you can listen to that and say, this is not about Nordic Combined skiing. It's about applying these tools to my sport and to my life. And that's the thing. It's learning these mental skills and that skill set and applying it to your sport and to your life. And trust me, it applies. It's not specific to one sport. So you need to be able to listen to this, pay attention, and say, how can I apply this to my sport? How can I take his example and make me better at my sport, knowing that doing this stuff can help? It sure doesn't hurt because Niklas is pretty good at what he does. So, and know that that's what I'm here for as a mental coach. I working with individual athletes, to parents, to coaches, to school districts, doing that. That's what I'm here for. And I can tell you that these sort of things are when I go into schools, when I work with athletes or good teams, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm talking about. I was doing it today at a school. Same ideas, talking about visualization, talking about focusing on what we can control and having that be our focus, and not about the results, but about the grind and doing that positively. All the things that I talked about today with people, with some educators, were exactly the same things that Niklas is talking about in doing Nordic Combined. It's applicable across so many things and everything we do. So that's awesome. If that's something you're interested in doing this in your life, your athletes, your school, whatever, get a hold of me. I'd love to talk to you about how this is so good. And I've got some more athletes coming up, some other coaches coming up, and I just know I'm going to, if I wasn't already passionate about this stuff, just know it's coming even more. I'm going to come in. I'm coming in hot now because I believe it now. I see this the more and more I'm talking to these high level athletes that are using it. It's where I'm going now. So buckle up because I'm not backing off. So it's good stuff. So thank you so much for joining me. Do me a favor. Like, share, subscribe, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. You see stuff, follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, all those things. Follow, share, help me out, get the message out there. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much. This has been the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Toman, and always remember to forge your metal. Thanks for listening to the Mental Mettle Podcast. Don't forget to tune in every week for more insights and strategies to help you forge mental toughness and resilience. This podcast is brought to you by Mental Mettle Coaching, where we are driven by a passion for sharing knowledge and experience that empowers others to play, live, and grow with confidence. Our mission is to instill a resilient and spirited mindset in our clients, enabling them to confidently face adversity and actively seek new challenges for personal growth. At Mental Mettle Coaching, we offer individual coaching, group coaching, and professional development for schools and businesses. Whether you're an athlete, educator, or professional, we're here to help you unlock your potential and thrive in every area of life. Until next time, keep growing, stay resilient, and always remember to forge your metal.